There comes a moment when nations, just like people, must decide who they are. When the world's alliances shift, when powers play their games behind closed doors, there rises a voice, steady, unshaken, that refuses to bow. Today we're pulling back the curtain on why the United States is standing with Pakistan, and more importantly, how India is answering, not with fear, but with force, with vision, with unshakable resolve. If you think you know what's coming, you don't. Because what India is about to do will shake the very foundations of this global stage. Power alignments don't define destiny. They never have, and they never will. It is easy to look at the world stage and assume that the nations who sit together at the table of power are the ones who will write the script of tomorrow. It is tempting to believe that when two flags wave side by side, when two leaders shake hands, when two governments align their strategies, that the story has already been written and sealed. But history tells a different story. History whispers, and sometimes it shouts, that alliances can shift like sand under your feet, that agreements are made not on stone but on paper, and paper can be torn. Power alignments are snapshots, not final portraits. They are moments in time shaped by interest, convenience, and necessity, but they are not the ultimate determinant of a nation's future. Destiny is not dictated by who stands with you or against you in any given season. It is not confined by the circles you are invited into or excluded from. The truest form of destiny emerges from within, from the values a nation upholds, the resilience of its people, and the vision of its leaders. When a country knows who it is and what it stands for, alliances may influence its path, but they cannot imprison its purpose. Too often, we mistake partnership for permanence or opposition for defeat. We assume that being left out means being left behind, but the truth is, the greatest victories are often forged in the moments of isolation, when a nation has to stand tall on its own, when it has to craft its own way forward without the crutch of international approval. The United States may back Pakistan today. That may be their alignment in this hour. It may serve their interests, their strategies, their vision for what benefits them. But that does not define India's place in the story. It does not limit India's capacity to rise, to lead, to stand unshaken in the face of shifting alliances. India's destiny is not a pawn on someone else's chessboard. It is not at the mercy of policies drafted in Washington or Islamabad. It belongs to its people, to their will, to their hunger for progress, and their refusal to be diminished by political maneuvering. We must understand that power alignments are fragile. They are built on needs, on fears, on mutual benefits that can evaporate the moment those benefits are no longer shared. Today's ally can be tomorrow's adversary. Today's support can become tomorrow's silence. Nations do not form bonds out of love. They form them out of leverage, and leverage shifts. So if we measure our destiny by who stands with us today, we will always be at the mercy of someone else's changing interests. But when a nation roots its future in its own unshakable foundations, its culture, its people, its moral compass, then no alliance can either crown it or crush it. India has learned over decades of trials and triumphs that its future cannot be outsourced to global powers. It has weathered wars, sanctions, pressures, and betrayals, yet it has emerged stronger each time. That strength does not come from the hands extended toward it, but from the hands of its own citizens who build, innovate, and dream beyond the limitations imposed on them. This is what separates destiny from alignment. This is what separates destiny from alignment. Destiny does not bend every time a foreign leader decides where to draw their lines. Destiny is forged in the fires of conviction, in the courage to stand when others expect you to bow, in the wisdom to play the long game when the world demands instant concessions. There's a greater narrative at work here. When nations try to write your story for you, you can either conform to their script or you can write your own. Alignments may provide opportunities, but they are not the authors of your future. They may block doors, but they cannot lock away the vision burning inside a nation determined to create its own path. That is why the shifting alliances of superpowers may cause headlines, but they cannot erase purpose. When a nation knows its worth, it cannot be sidelined. When its people stand together, no realignment of power can bury their aspirations. And when its leaders refuse to be intimidated by temporary partnerships between others, that nation rises, and not because of who stands with it, but because it stands for itself. India's strength is born from its people. It does not lie solely in its borders, its economy, or its military might, though all of these are formidable. It lives and breathes in the hearts of over 1 billion individuals who carry within them the resilience of centuries, the wisdom of diverse traditions, and the unrelenting courage to keep moving forward no matter the obstacles. A nation is only as strong as the people who call it home. And India's people have proven time and again that their collective will cannot be subdued, their voice cannot be silenced, and their dreams cannot be contained. This strength is not borrowed from alliances or gifted by other nations. It is forged in the daily lives of those who build with their hands, innovate with their minds, and hope with their hearts. It is easy for outsiders to look at India and measure its influence by numbers, by GDP figures, by military statistics, by international rankings. But those numbers fail to capture the true source of India's power, a population that refuses to be broken. This is a people who have endured colonization, partition, wars, and internal challenges that could have fractured any other nation. Yet, they stood, they adapted, they rebuilt, they thrived. Every hardship became a lesson, every trial a stepping stone, every setback an invitation to rise stronger. The story of India is written in the resilience of farmers who tilled the soil despite uncertainty, in the determination of students who study by candlelight for a better future, in the persistence of entrepreneurs who build empires from nothing but vision and grit. This is where true strength lies, not in what others give to you, but in what you create for yourself. India's people are its greatest resource, a mosaic of cultures, languages, and beliefs that do not weaken the nation but enrich it. Unity and diversity is not just a slogan. It is a lived reality that powers India's progress. While other nations may depend on the protection or validation of powerful allies, India has always drawn its confidence from within. It does not beg for its place at the global table. It earns it through the labor, intellect, and sacrifices of its people. And this is why attempts to diminish India through shifting alliances or global politics will always fall short. When a nation's power comes from its people, it cannot be easily swayed by who stands beside it or against it. Its foundation is too deep, too grounded in the everyday victories of ordinary citizens who refuse to quit. The true force of India is found in its mothers raising resilient children, in its soldiers who stand guard with unwavering loyalty, in its innovators who push boundaries to put the country on the map of technological and scientific achievement. It is this people-driven power that transforms challenges into opportunities. When crises hit, India's people do not fold. They mobilize. They collaborate. They solve. They rise to the occasion, often surprising the world with their ability to turn adversity into advancement. This is a strength that no foreign policy can grant, and no external threat can take away. It is self-sustaining, fueled by an unshakable belief in the nation's purpose and future. India's strength is not an illusion propped up by temporary partnerships or dependent on the goodwill of superpowers. It is alive in the spirit of its people, a force so vast and enduring that it transcends political alignments and diplomatic games. It is the people who will carry India forward, who will define its destiny, and who will ensure that no matter how the global stage shifts, India stands unbroken, unyielding, and unstoppable. Diplomacy without resolve is empty. It is like a beautifully crafted vessel with no anchor, drifting wherever the currents of convenience take it. The world often praises diplomacy for its elegance, the art of negotiation, the careful choice of words, the ability to build bridges across turbulent waters. But diplomacy in its purest form is not simply about avoiding conflict or maintaining appearances. It is about pursuing a purpose with unwavering clarity, about standing firm in values even as you extend your hand in dialogue. Without resolve, diplomacy is nothing more than polite conversation, easily swayed by pressure, incapable of bringing about meaningful change. True diplomacy requires a backbone. It demands that a nation not only speak, but stand. It demands that beneath every negotiation table, there is an unshakable foundation of principles, priorities, and non-negotiables that define who you are and what you will not compromise. When leaders engage in diplomacy without resolve, they risk becoming spectators in their own story, nodding along to decisions that ultimately serve someone else's interests. But when diplomacy is grounded in conviction, it becomes a weapon far more powerful than any show of force, because it combines the wisdom to navigate complexity with the courage to never betray your core. India understands this truth deeply. For decades, it has engaged with the world through diplomacy, forming partnerships, building trade relations, participating in global forums. Yet its most defining moments have not come from yielding to external demands, but from drawing a line in the sand. Even when standing firm came at a cost. India's diplomacy is strongest when it's guided by its resolve. When it walks into the room, not as a nation desperate for validation, but as a sovereign power unwilling to compromise its long-term vision for short-term gain. Resolve gives diplomacy its substance. It turns words into commitments, handshakes into trust, and agreements into lasting impact. Without it, diplomacy is hollow, vulnerable to manipulation, easily derailed by the shifting tides of international politics. Countries that lack resolve often find themselves trapped in cycles of concession, pleasing others at the expense of their own destiny. But those who pair diplomacy with steadfastness become immovable forces, capable of shaping the narrative rather than being shaped by it. Diplomacy without resolve may keep the peace for a moment, but it cannot secure the future. It may win applause in conference halls, but it cannot win the respect of those who test your boundaries. In the realm of global power, nations respect not just those who can talk, but those who can stand. They respect those who pair negotiation with a steel spine, who can balance listening with refusing, who can engage in dialogue without ever abandoning their identity. This is where India sets itself apart. It does not enter the world's negotiating tables as a passive participant. It enters as a nation anchored in its values, its history, and its vision for tomorrow. It knows that diplomacy is not about pleasing everyone. It's about protecting your purpose while engaging the world with wisdom and strategy. This kind of diplomacy cannot be bought, coerced, or undermined, because it is rooted in something deeper than expedience, the unyielding resolve of a nation that knows who it is and where it is going. Without resolve, diplomacy is nothing but empty words. With it, diplomacy becomes one of the most powerful tools a nation can wield, a means not just to navigate the complexities of the present, but to shape the course of the future. Pressure reveals true leadership. It strips away the polished speeches, the carefully curated images, and the ceremonial titles, leaving only the essence of who a leader truly is. In times of calm, anyone can appear strong, decisive, and capable. It's easy to speak of vision and values when there are no storms on the horizon, no enemies at the gate, no crises demanding immediate action. But when the pressure mounts, when the unexpected arrives, when allies falter, when the whole world seems to watch with doubt, that's when the mask falls away. That's when leadership is no longer about appearances, but about action. No longer about talking, but about standing. Pressure is a test, and not everyone passes it. It forces leaders to make choices they'd rather avoid, to walk roads they never planned to take, and to do so under the weight of scrutiny and consequence. It does not politely ask for character, it demands it. Under pressure, the weak look for an escape route, the uncertain wait for someone else to take charge, and the self-serving crumble under the weight of personal interest. But the true leader rises. They do not deny the storm, they step into it. They do not shrink from responsibility, they shoulder it. India's story is filled with moments when pressure exposed the heart of its leadership. Moments when the nation stood at a crossroads under the shadow of conflict, in the grip of international isolation, amid economic strain, and the easy path would have been to yield, to comply, to trade integrity for temporary relief. But real leadership does not bow to pressure. It does not negotiate away its soul for convenience. It sees beyond the immediate, beyond the noise, to the larger picture that history will remember. Leadership under pressure is not about never feeling fear. It's about refusing to let fear dictate your actions. It's about keeping a steady hand when the ground shakes, a clear voice when chaos deafens, and a moral compass when compromise tempts. This is why pressure is such a revealing force. It exposes what has been hidden beneath the surface. It shows whether the one at the helm truly believes in their principles or whether they only perform them for applause. India, as a nation, embodies this kind of leadership because its leaders are forged in fire. They are not shielded from trials. They are shaped by them. And through them, the people see not only power, but purpose. This is why India's leadership, when tested, does not dissolve. It crystallizes. It shows the world that leadership is not about how loudly you speak in the halls of diplomacy, but how firmly you stand when everything you value is on the line. Pressure is not the enemy of leadership. It is its proving ground. It is where intentions are separated from convictions, where words are tested against reality, and where the true measure of a leader comes into focus. A leader who can stand under pressure, unshaken and uncompromising, does more than lead a nation through the storm. They redefine what it means to lead at all. A nation's voice can redefine history. It is not always the armies, the weapons, or the treaties that shape the future of civilizations. It is often the unified, unwavering voice of a people who refuse to be silenced. That voice may not roar at first. It may begin as a whisper, carried by those who dare to dream of something greater than their circumstances. But as it grows, as it gathers the weight of millions who share the same vision, it becomes unstoppable. It becomes the force that topples empires, that rewrites maps, that forces the world to take notice. History has never truly belonged to the powerful few at the top. It has belonged to the nations that found their voice and used it with courage. This voice is not just sound, it is identity. It is the declaration of who a nation is, what it stands for, and what it will no longer accept. When a nation speaks with one voice, when its people rise above division and rally behind a shared purpose, the effect is seismic. It disrupts the plans of those who seek to control them. It challenges the narratives imposed by outsiders. It redefines how that nation will be seen for generations to come. And perhaps most importantly, it sends a clear message. We will not be written out of history. We will write our own. India knows this truth better than most. Its voice has been one of the most defining forces in modern history. It was this collective voice that rose against colonial rule, that refused to bow even in the face of brutality, that chose nonviolence not out of weakness, but out of profound strength. It was this voice that said independence was not a privilege to be granted, but a right to be claimed. When that voice spoke, the world listened. It could not be ignored because it came not from the mouths of a few leaders, but from the beating heart of an entire nation. That same voice still echoes today, stronger than ever, in a time when global powers shift alliances, when policies are made in distant capitals, when narratives are spun to serve others' interests. India's voice rises to remind the world that it cannot be reduced to a pawn in someone else's game. It will not be spoken for. It will speak for itself. This is the power of a nation that knows its worth. It refuses to be defined by the agreements or disagreements of others. It defines itself. When a nation finds its voice, it reshapes its destiny. It stops waiting for permission to take its place in the world. It stops measuring its worth by the recognition of outsiders. It starts acting, creating, leading with confidence born from within. This is what changes history. When a people unite under a vision so strong that it shakes the ground beneath the feet of those who once underestimated them. And the beauty of this voice is that it cannot be silenced by pressure, bribed by promises, or erased by power. It transcends political shifts and economic cycles. It lives in the songs of its people, in the hands of its workers, in the resolve of its leaders, and in the dreams of its children. It is the soul of a nation spoken out loud. And when a nation dares to use that voice to declare its purpose, to claim its future, to tell its story on its own terms, history listens and history changes.